This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 109, entitled Untangling Our Relationships. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack, and I'm a certified faith-based life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want you to know that no matter your season or your circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life, and I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm so glad you're here. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you that if you are struggling to navigate the unique challenges that come with the mid-season of life, I would love to be your coach. Whether it's the relationship that you have with yourself, your spouse, your adult children, your coworker, or with your best friend, I invite you to schedule a free clarity call with me where we can explore ways to create desired change in your life and in your relationships. All you have to do is click the Work With Me tab at the top of my website, which is www.seasons-coaching.com, and you will find a link there to schedule your free 55-minute clarity call, and we can see if this is a good fit for you. You can also find the link in the show notes if you want. So if you are tired of feeling confused about your purpose, feeling disconnected from yourself and others, trying to control everything outside of yourself in order to feel better, I've got you. I became a certified faith-based life coach, specializing in helping women of faith in the mid-season of life create a life they love, relationships that they love. If you are ready to find your purpose in this season of life, create greater connection in your relationships, and free yourself by learning how to manage yourself, then reach out to me and let's get that scheduled, that clarity call scheduled. Visit www.seasons-coaching.com and click the Work With Me tab and find the link to schedule that call today. And again, it will be in the show notes. So now on to this week's episode. When we are struggling in our relationships, oftentimes we are so tangled up that we don't know where we end and the other person begins. This is especially true in marriage relationships and parental relationships, especially with our adult kids. It can be a big jumble of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and we're usually blaming each other for anything negative that we experience. And as you begin to learn how to untangle your relationships, you can increase connection and intimacy with yourself and with the other people in your life. So how do we begin to untangle our relationships? The first step is working on yourself. And this comes through greater self-awareness and owning your experiences. It means taking responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This is what the CTFAR model, the self-coaching model that I teach, helps with. And I've covered it many times in this podcast. So if you want to go back and listen to episode number 5, you will learn more about it. But essentially, it's this. We have a world outside of us, and this includes people and things that we cannot control. We also have a world inside of us, and this includes our interpretation of the things outside of us, or our thoughts, which create our emotions or feelings, which fuel our behaviors or actions. Again, ultimately creating the kind of experiences that we have in our life. When we can understand this can be life-changing. This self-awareness is so powerful. But I want to take it a little bit further. I want to invite you to imagine that drawer in your house, and we all have one. It's the drawer that is full of junk. Half of the drawer is full of things that you never use, and you don't even know what they are, right? You've forgotten what's in there. And over time, this drawer becomes a big wadded mess. And when you begin to sort that drawer out, you pull things out and you take a good look at them. And as you're sorting items, you ask yourself if you use this certain thing, or if you like that thing, or even if it still works or has all the pieces and parts. You decide on the things that you want to keep and those things that you want to let go of. This is similar to the work of untangling. You begin to the untangling process by exploring the stories you are telling yourself and then question what is in your mental and emotional junk drawer. You can ask questions like, what belongs to me and what doesn't? What am I willing to let go of? What am I willing to change my thoughts around? What is worth standing up for? All of those questions are powerful ones. And when you do this in your relationships, it isn't about deciding whose fault it is. Fault finding only moves you into the dance of blame and shame or finding the bad guy, believing it's either someone else's fault or shaming yourself. Sometimes we have that need to be right, but that only creates disconnection from ourselves and from others. When we can learn to handle conflict well, we actually create greater connection in our relationships. Let me say that again. When we learn to handle conflict well, we can actually create greater connection in our relationships. Conflict really is part of the human experience. And if we can learn to handle it from a healthy place, we can grow closer in our relationships. I really believe that conflict in our relationships can provide that healthy pressure to growth, right? And then we can experience growth not only in our relationships, but individually. But before we start digging into our mental and emotional junk drawer, we need to create a sense of feeling of safety. If we don't feel safe, we move into our survival mode. We disconnect and our mind races. We can't access our prefrontal cortex there. And this prevents us from being intentional. When we are sensing danger, real or perceived, we may explode or withdraw. When we are feeling psychologically unsafe, we may unconsciously do things to try and feel better, but that actually don't help us untangle our relationship at all. In learning how to untangle our relationships, we must first learn how to soothe ourselves and regulate our emotions. If we don't know how to do this in a healthy way, we might find ourselves doing things like busying ourselves so much that we don't even ever allow ourselves to feel our emotions. Or we might begin using external things to buffer away those emotions in an unhealthy way, right? Again, to feel better, but in the long run, it doesn't serve us. Or we may find ourselves overanalyzing or overthinking our emotions, blaming other people, even taking on the emotions of others and making them our own, or unintentionally turning and experiencing our emotions as physical symptoms. When we do any of those things, we harm ourselves because we're not learning how to process or regulate our emotions. Emotions are there for a reason. They're natural, they're powerful, they're beautiful if we know how to use them and process them and learn from them. The truth is emotions are truth tellers, and they can actually act as our inner compass. We can learn a lot by asking ourselves questions. You could ask yourself something like, what emotion am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What is this emotion trying to tell me? Taking the time to answer these questions will give you an opportunity to slow things down and to take care of yourself in that moment so that you can live more authentically and intentionally. When we take the time to process and learn from our emotions, we are better able to stay calm, not overreact, and to be engaged in our relationships, which in turns creates greater connection and intimacy. But what do you do when you are activated and flooded with emotions in a moment? Right? When this happens, it is so important to know how to soothe and ground yourself. And this includes things like visualization or using your senses to help you return to the present moment, because the present moment will help you establish a sense of safety. You may already have some methods that you use for yourself. I'm going to include a resource that I found that it has 30 different suggestions. It's fabulous. But On this episode, I'm just going to share with you 3 that I usually go to in those moments when I'm experiencing a flood of emotions and I need to regulate and ground myself. The first one, and I probably use this the most, to breathe deeply. And I often put my hand on my heart and then I slowly inhale and exhale. And sometimes I think or say in and out, or I count with each breath. And I feel the air fill up my lungs and I pay attention to how it feels as I exhale. The second one, just going on a short walk and concentrating on my steps and maybe even counting them. Or it could include paying attention to the rhythm of my steps and how it feels to place my feet on the ground and lift them up. And the third way is self-kindness. And this one is probably the second one that I use the most, that I use to regulate and soothe myself. And this includes repeating kind and compassionate phrases to myself. Sometimes I say them out loud, and other times I say them in my head, and I repeat them as often as necessary. Phrases such as, "This is a tough moment, and it's going to all be okay. You are strong and capable. You'll get through this." Or, "You are doing the best you can, and that is enough." So I invite you to explore ways that you can soothe yourself in those moments and keep them in your back pocket for when you need them, right? Remember, safety is felt in the body. So when you can soothe yourself and regulate your emotions, you'll be better equipped to navigate conflict in your relationships, right? So when we are overly emotional, right, that causes us to be entangled and doesn't allow us to be separate and to think with our rational brain. So the first step is to soothe yourself and regulate your emotions and create that safety for yourself. So after you've created safety for yourself, the next step in untangling your relationships is to self-confront. This means you take a good hard look in a magnifying mirror, if you will, with all the lights on. Now, I don't know about you, but this can be uncomfortable and even painful sometimes. However, this is the kind of pain that leads to growth, a type of growth that is required to live a life of integrity, being honest with ourselves. And this type of growth fosters intimate relationships. Honesty will always strengthen a relationship, especially from a place of kindness. So self-confrontation must be done from a place of safety, not from a place of shaming yourself into being better. Safety allows you to step out of that dance of blame or shame. It helps you focus on cleaning up your side of the street, which is the only thing that you really have control over. It includes taking responsibility for how you are reacting and responding, and the system or dance of disconnection in your relationship that you have helped create. Yet it is all done from an honest place and a kind place. When self-confronting, you ask yourself questions like, how am I showing up in this relationship? Is it the way I want to show up? How am I contributing to the problems? Am I willing to show up as the best version of myself, no matter what the other person is doing? Do I overfunction or underfunction in this relationship? Or what is the relationship system or dance of disconnection that I have helped create? Am I open to input from the other person? What is it like to be in a relationship with me? These questions are powerful ones, and they allow you to discover your role in your relationship system or dance of disconnection. Again, it isn't about shaming yourself. It isn't about finding blame. It's about being honest with yourself from a place of kindness and compassion. I can't stress that enough. We all have reasons for why we show up the way we do in our relationships. However, when we slow down and we get curious, which I talk a lot about that, curiosity is key. When we can do that and we're curious about what is ours to own, we can begin cleaning up our side of the street. And after we have created safety, and cleaned up our side of the street. What's next, right? What's the next step of untangling? It's learning how to make room for the both of you in your relationship. Healthy relationships make room for both people to show up as themselves authentically. When relationships are in distress, it's often because they've set up their relationship as a zero-sum game, which means one person loses and one person wins every single time. But over time, that relationship begins to deteriorate. Making room for both of you doesn't mean merging into one person and thinking the exact same things, but it means holding on to yourself while allowing space for the other person. This is essential to untangling in our relationships and in creating healthy connections. So let me say that again. It doesn't mean we become one person. Rather, we hold on to ourselves while at the same time allowing space for the other person to be them. Because relationships matter. We need them. We are wired to connect with other people. And I've spoken about this on other episodes before, because the connection that we have with other people are important to our overall health and well-being. There are countless studies that have evidence that show that. They affect our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual well-being. However, when we can think relationally, we are better able to look for ways to show love for everyone in the story. We allow other people to be themselves while at the same time creating healthy boundaries for ourselves. Brené Brown says it this way: the most compassionate people have the best boundaries. I just love that. Boundaries can be one of the kindest things that we do. I teach that the connection we feel or the quality of relationships that we have with others comes from the way we think about the other people. And I believe this to be true. And this includes what Brené Brown teaches, that if we believe that we are seen, that we are heard, that we are valued, and that we can give and receive without judgment, and that we gain strength and sustenance from our relationships, we will feel connection. So again, it's about what we are believing and thinking about that relationship. So what does it look like to make room for both of you in the relationship? It looks like each person being themselves. Each person gets to be themselves, their authentic selves. It means letting go of expectations, right? Now, it also means making requests, right? Sometimes people think that when I say just let go of expectations, that we should never expect anything from people. No, we make requests of other people. We request collaboration. We create agreements within our relationship and boundaries, healthy boundaries, right? So we request all day long. But when the expectation of somebody doing something affects our overall well-being, we want to look at that. Do we need to let that expectation go and then look at creating a boundary and discussing our agreements within our relationship? It means living in integrity, being ourselves, being honest with ourselves, right? It includes healthy pressure. Again, growth happens in our relationships because of the conflict we experience. Conflict is very different than contention. And finally, it includes compassion for both people, compassion for self and compassion for the other person as we grow in the relationship. So those are the 3 steps of becoming untangled in our relationships, right? We focus on cleaning out our relationship junk drawer by looking at ourselves. First, through creating safety, right? Creating that psychological safety by self-soothing and grounding ourselves so that we can regulate our emotions. Self-confrontation, it's taking responsibility for how we respond and how we react and the system or dance that we've created in our relationship, right? From a place of honesty and kindness. And finally, making room for both of us in the relationship. We allow others to be themselves while at the same time creating healthy boundaries for ourselves. These 3 steps help you to strengthen the connection and intimacy in not only your relationship with your partner or your friend, right? The other person, but the other people in your life, such as your adult children, your best friend, right? These steps will work, whatever the relationship is that you're working on. And I can honestly say that as I continue to practice, because that's what it is, it's a practice. We practice regulating our emotions, being honest with myself from a place of kindness and letting other people be who they are while creating healthy boundaries for myself. Those three things help me be so much happier in my life and in my relationships. More often than not, when I have a consistent practice of that, I am better able to be the creator of a life I want, a life I love, while at the same time, I'm better able to show up as who I want to be in my relationships with others. For years, we've heard about the importance of a balanced diet, regular exercise, favorable genetics, right? Those are the foundation of a long, healthy life. However, as I stated before, there are dozens, I don't know, probably hundreds of studies done that give us insight on how relationships affect them, affect our health. And one of those is the Harvard study. It's called the Study of Adult Development. And it has made a compelling case that deep, meaningful connections with other people play a crucial role in our overall healthiness and happiness, especially as we age. And it surpasses the influence of wealth, fame, and even physical health markers like cholesterol levels. The research emphasizes a profound truth. Our relationships serve as a buffer. They safeguard our physical and emotional well-being. It's if the bonds that we forge, those relationships that we build with other people, weave a protective layer around us, delaying the onset of age-related illness and extending our lifespan. This protective mechanism thought to be linked to the way our relationships help us manage stress. When faced with life's inevitable challenges, because they will come, we have conflict, right? But if we can have a partner to confide in or a friend to call, this can physically soothe us, and it mitigates the detrimental effects of stress and time on our bodies. This study also shows the spectrum of beneficial relationships. It's broad. It includes not just those intimate partnerships or close friendships, but also positive interactions in our daily lives, such as with colleagues or even brief exchanges with others, like at the store, right? Or the doctor's office. These moments of connection contribute to our sense of well-being. Essentially, having someone in our corner whom we trust and rely on is invaluable. Beyond this, every positive interaction, no matter how small, adds a sprinkle of joy into our lives, reinforcing the idea that our social connections are a fundamental part of living a longer, happier life. The time you spend on strengthening your relationships in your life pays off big time. And we do this best when we untangle those relationships in our life and we create a healthy dynamic. If you're ready to take your relationships to the next level, I would love to be your coach. Now, remember, you can book a free clarity call with me and learn more about what it would look like to work together. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, you are amazing, and have a joyful week. Thank you for tuning in to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about me or how to work with me, just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and have a joyful week.